Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. We're awaiting a press conference out of Las Vegas tonight. But take 3 steps back. It's hard to believe that almost 3 full days after Stephen Paddock's bloody rampage in Las Vegas, officials looking into it still don't know why he did this. And in fact, many people don't believe that officials don't know why he did it. If you've been online recently, you know the internet is humming with alternative theories on this case, along with many allegations of a government cover-up. In the absence of facts, conspiracies fill the void. But here's the truth, amazingly, as best we can determine it from conversations we just had with people directly involved in the investigation. As of about 90 minutes ago, investigators legitimately had no idea why Stephen Paddock committed mass murder. He did not seem religious. He didn't seem political. That's true. The crime still makes no sense at all to the people looking into it, and that may be the scariest part of all. Now, all of that could change at any minute. Of course, as we said, we're waiting for investigators to begin that news conference in Las Vegas, and it is possible they'll reveal new evidence then. We'll go to that, obviously, when it begins. And a few minutes ago, we received the very first statement from the shooter's girlfriend, recently arrived back in the U.S. from abroad. We'll play that for you in just a minute. In the meantime, though, we want to show you a new tape we've received. It doesn't answer why this happened, but it does provide some context for what it was like as it was happening. Here's footage from police body cams taken on Sunday night.
Hey, go that way, go that way, go that way. Hey, they're shooting right at us, guys. Everybody stay down. Stay down. Where's it at?
That news conference just started in Las Vegas. Here it is.
One of many press conferences we have provided in order to provide the public the information that is occurring. And then, so the sequence of these events tonight, I will provide you some, can we get some help back there? I will provide you a sequence of some updates of the investigation as we have moved forward since the last time we spoke to you. Any specifics or continuance of any global investigative leads that you need to be aware of. Special Agent Aaron Rouse will provide those that information associated with that. Okay? And then subsequently, I will return to the podium, assist with some Q&A, and then Commissioner Sisolak is available if you have any questions of the Commissioner. And then obviously we have Senator Dean Heller who wished to address the audience also. So, President Trump. I think he was in town today. Yes, he was in town. And the reason why I bring up President Trump is nothing to do, in fact, with President Trump, but to do with the police department. There was some concern because of his visit that investigations associated with this case would be delayed or hindered. And I'm here to assure you none of that occurred. There was a separation of personnel associated with first responders of the Harvest Festival event that took the opportunity to meet with Mr. Trump, and he had the opportunity to congratulate them for their heroic acts. The investigators are directly related to this investigation, both on my department and the FBI, were not part of that. So I want everybody assured there was no hindrance in continuance of the investigation. Return of property. There's a lot of questions going on with that. And I wish I could provide you answers with that. We will try to post on lvmpd.com when as soon as we can advise victims when they can receive their personal property. We are still evaluating the crime scene. Until that completes, the property phase will not occur. So the best of my understanding of where we're at, we're looking at 4 to 5 days. So I know that sounds troublesome, but it's important that we dot the I's and cross the T's as far as the evidentiary and possible prosecution in the future. Injuries. Injury number that we are using today, 489. Of that 489, 317 have been discharged from the hospital. So the question is, Sheriff, you provided several different numbers associated with that, all the way up to 527. Now you got to imagine we're dispersed across several hospitals. We're relying on internal communication of the hospitals to provide us accurate numbers. So that's ever changing. And additionally, hospitals receive patients outside of this event. So quite often, or hopefully not quite often, but often, some of those patients were double counted or they were misconstrued as event injuries versus other injuries such as car accidents. So today I'm comfortable in saying the injured number is 489. Deaths still remain at 59. I had told you 59 before, plus one being the suspect. That changed. Today it's 58, plus one, the suspect, 59. And it was the same reason that occurred before, as I explained. So hope you understand that. Nobody wants that number to go up, and by the grace of God, it went down. That's a good thing. So today I will provide you some updates on our investigation of the mass shooting Sunday night at Route 91. More than 100 investigators have spent the last 72 hours combing through the life of 64-year-old Stephen Paddock to produce a profile of someone I will call disturbed and dangerous. What we know is Stephen Paddock is a man who spent decades acquiring weapons and ammo and living a secret life, much of which will never be fully understood. He meticulously planned on the worst domestic attack in United States history. As many of you already reported, Paddock rented a room at the Ogden Hotel in downtown Las Vegas. This has been confirmed. Okay? Reasons that ran through Paddock's mind is unknown, but it was directly during the same time as Life is Beautiful. We have recovered evidence from that location. We don't know if it is evidence, but we have recovered items and video evidence. And I don't want to, you know what, I'm using the wrong term. Evidence is not the term. We have recovered video from there to review Mr. Paddock's actions while he was there. Now, it's important for you to understand, this was not, the rooms were not rented by the Ogden. It was done through Airbnb by a private owner unknown to the Ogden. So we have very great cooperation from the owners of Life is Beautiful and the Ogden, and they're in full cooperation. Okay, while we have already spoken to many people who have contacted with Stephen Paddock at hotels and places he frequented, we still have more interviews to conduct. Since Monday, there have been many questions for us to release a timeline, and today we have one. I want to point out the information previously reported on the time of the first shot was based on a CAD report. That's our computer-aided dispatch. That's what we do for calls for service. So that report is dependent on who a particular person calling in and that timestamp. But what we have done through the review of body-worn cameras, we are able to pull it back to previously from 10:08 to 10:05. So Carlos. So I'm going to give you the chance to review that, take photographs of it, and I'll walk you through each timeline. So at 10:05, the first fired by the suspect. This was seen on closed-circuit television from the concert venue. 10:12, first two officers arrived on the 31st floor and announced that gunfire is coming from directly above them. 10:15, the last shots were fired from the suspect per body-worn camera. So if you're looking at the math, 10 minutes. 10:17, the first two officers arrive on the 32nd floor. 10:18, security officer tells the LVMPD officers he was shot and gives the exact location of the suspect's room. Now you notice a minute delta there. Before they broadcasted it, obviously they were in a conversation with the security guard immediately upon them exiting the elevators. Between 10:26 and 10:30, 8 additional officers arrived on the 32nd floor and began to move systematically down the hallway, clearing each room and looking for any injured people. They moved this way because no longer hear the gunfire of the active shooter situation. 10:55, 8 officers arrived in the stairwell at the opposite end of the hallway nearest the suspect's room. So when I say nearest the suspect's room, you can imagine the doorway of the hotel room. This stairwell and this door access is approximately 2 to 3 feet away. 11:20, the first breach was set off and officers entered the suspect's room. They observed the suspect down on the ground and also saw a second door that could not be accessed from their position. So it's a suite, and you have a main area of the suite, which is a living room, kitchen, dinette area, and then on opposite ends of that is 2 bedrooms. I'm sorry, where did I leave off? Somebody yell it out. Okay, so if you do the math on that, all the way up to 11:20 from 10:05, we're looking at 75 minutes. So the young lady here in the front with the red phone, you had mentioned 72 minutes, so now you see where those minutes came from. Okay? At 11:27, the second breach was set off, allowing officers to access the second room, and no one else was located within the hotel room. Okay, these are following extenuating circumstances as to why it may appeared that there was some delay or undue delay in reaching the suspects. Okay, the officers in the first strike team reached this 32nd floor within 12 minutes, which is phenomenal, of the first shot being fired. When the officers arrived and confirmed the location of the suspect's room, the gunfire had stopped. In accordance with their training, the officers received a master key card from the injured security guard and began to systematically clear each hotel room. So imagine the elevated bank in the center, 150 feet down on a triplex hotel was the suspect's room. So there's several rooms along the way. Because of no firing was occurring, they could not hear additional firing. They believed it was important to evacuate in case the suspect was barricaded. While the first strike team did this, the second team, made up of 2 K-9 personnel, a SWAT officer, and patrol officers, navigated the numerous stairs wearing heavy tactical gear, carrying a large bag with tactical equipment, and holding rifles in order to have a closer position to the suspect's room. And that is within that stairwell and that doorway adjacent to the room I described previously. They attempted to secure the front doorway of the suspect's room, but as they entered into the hallway, they could see the room service card, and readily apparent on the room service card were cameras. So they pulled back and they waited for the approach of a full SWAT team. And keep in mind, this delay was not undue, it was purposeful, and no shots were being heard by the suspect at this point. Eventually a plan was formulated, entry was made, suspect was seen laying on the ground. They encountered a closed bedroom door which was locked, and they breached that door additionally and found no other suspect. Another investigative issue was cameras. Questions was presented about cameras and whether they were recording. We determined none of the cameras were recording. There was 2 cameras on the room service cart out in the hallway. There was one on the peephole of the front door, and additionally there was a baby monitor camera placed in the general family area of the hotel room. None of them were being recorded. One thing I left out was the initial approach, and they looked out in the hallway when they observed the cameras on the room service cart. It was obviously there was several rounds discharged through the door, and through the blast of the bullets through the door, you could actually see a weapon through those openings in the door, but no suspect was seen. Now those rounds were the strafing rounds that he put through the door in order to shoot at the security guard. Okay, the other thing I wanted to update you on is the search warrant of the suspect's vehicle located at the Mandalay Bay. I had presented that there was ammonium nitrate recovered, but there were several cases within the car that had not been searched yet at the last briefing I provided you with you. So within those cases, there was 10 one-pound containers of tannerite, 2 20-pound containers of tannerite, and approximately 1,600 rounds of ammunition. So Carlos, can you put up the numbers? So tip line, this is an ongoing investigation. We can never not have enough information because we are continuing to run down leads, and it's important for us to get all the information we can on Mr. Paddock, because right now we're trying to prove his intent or understand his intent and the history associated with this, and whether or not he has any accomplices. So we ask people to still call in to 311. If you're out of state, 702-828-311, and then the FBI 1-800-CALL-FBI, and that is investigative and also for electronic media. If you're able to call them, they will provide you the ability to download that online into their system. So at this point, I will provide you Special Agent in Charge Aaron Rouse, and he will walk you through some of the investigative steps we have accomplished jointly and where we're at in that total investigation. Subsequent to that, I will come back to the podium for any Q&A, and then we will have Commissioner Sisolak and Senator Dean Heller make comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. My name is Aaron Rouse. I'm the Special Agent in Charge for the Las Vegas Division of the FBI. Before I begin, I just want to comment that on behalf of all of the FBI, specifically the Las Vegas Division, our sympathy goes out to all of the families affected by this tragedy. This is our community. It's our community too. We live here, and we will get through this together. The FBI has had a partnership, continues to have a great partnership with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, as well as our other state and local officials. To say that this investigation will take a while is not surprising. So there's a lot of information that's going to change over time as we determine more facts. But this is what I can tell you. Our resolve is firm. We will get to the bottom of this, no matter how long it takes. The FBI has deployed over 100 personnel from across the nation to assist the Las Vegas Division in this investigation. This includes victim witness assistants, EAP counselors, evidence technicians, and technical assets, not to mention additional agents to help cover leads. The information that the public provides us is going to help us solve this. But we must focus on facts. We cannot give in to conjecture, and we cannot respond to every little Twitter feed that may indicate a theory. We need to focus on the facts. You need us to be right. You expect us to be right, and we want to be right. There's going to be questions. I'm sure you're going to have questions about some people that we've been talking to, maybe people outside of the United States. The fundamental trust of the American people in the FBI is based upon our discretion. And how good would that discretion be if we were to provide information that they provided to us in confidence? This is about informing on an investigation. This is about resolving an investigation. So specifics regarding any individual contact cannot be answered. You need us, you trust us, and the way we have that trust is by using good discretion about what we share. Additionally, we have multiple leads all across the United States and all across the world to our legal attaches determining the whereabouts and the travel patterns of all the people involved in this investigation. And that list grows. A lot of those leads will go absolutely nowhere, but we have to follow them, and that's going to take some time. Patience is going to be required of all of us. I know we have the patience of this police department because we have a great partnership, and we're all interested in the same thing, resolving this issue fairly and factually. With that, I'll turn it back over to Sheriff Lombardo.
Okay, happy to answer questions, and please provide some decorum.
Sheriff?
Yes, sir.
We know that you've had an opportunity in the FBI to speak to Mary Lou Danley. We know that you Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. We know you've had access to his computers, his cell phones, and so forth. And while you're not yet able to tell us exactly, if specifically what you found, let me ask a general question.
Okay.
Through all of that information that you've so far arrived at, is there anything that gives you a sense as to what was going on with this matter, what the motive might be? Without saying what it is, are you seeing anything that gives you a direction or any kind of an answer to that question?
Globally, no. I'm sorry to report no, me personally, but I'm not privy to the subsequent interviews that were conducted today. The FBI is not ready to disclose for public consumption what occurred in those interviews as of yet. So, sorry for that answer. Yes, sir.
Ms. Stanley said to her attorney that during the course of her time with the suspect, that she never saw or heard anything that suggested that he would carry out an act like this. You also said that you were looking for other people associated with him. We had some information specifically that there was a woman that you're looking for to talk to that may have been associated with the suspect. Is that true? You also said in your comments...
Are you going to give me a chance to answer? Can you start from the beginning?
Sorry.
Okay.
It's a question about Ms. Stanley and her comments to the lawyer that she had no idea what was going on.
Well, I think any person put in her situation would probably answer the same way. But like I said, we're not privy to investigative leads that were obtained today. Mr. Rouse could probably give you some better clarification to that. I haven't been briefed by the FBI on that interview as of yet. What was the other question, sir?
You said that you are still trying to figure out whether he had any accomplices.
Right. Yeah, we're obviously going through that. It's troublesome that this individual was able to move this amount of gear into a hotel room unassisted. It's troublesome for the amount of stuff that he had at both residences unassisted. So there's people that know this individual. There's people that could help us understand this individual. Because, interesting enough, I read a periodical earlier today, and it was from an FBI profiler that didn't understand this individual. Usually there's a telltale sign associated with these type of actions, reclusive, a plethora of things associated with this mindset, and we have not found that yet. So what could be more beneficial than if I find people that are associated with him either by friendship or accomplice, and for us to determine that.
Thank you.
Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
Two questions, Sheriff. First, you mentioned in your comments he had a secret life. What do you mean by that?
Well, most of us, not most of us, I don't live through social media, okay? There's a lot of us that live through social media in today's world. There's a lot of people that are interactive in the public. There's a lot of people that have workmates. This individual is retired. We found out that he has some real estate investments. Relationship-wise, it's very hard to determine what has occurred in his life in the last decade or so. We do know that he has a ex-wife. She didn't lead us to any knowledge. We know that everybody knows we talked to his brother. No knowledge was obtained. So anything that would indicate this individual's trigger point and that would cause him to do such harm, we haven't understood it yet. And I think it's important for us to get to there. And you have to be patient with us. Because this premeditation of this room, this is well thought out. So don't you think the concealment of his history or his life was well thought out? And it's incumbent upon us as professionals to figure that out.
And then besides what he did, that horrific act, are there any other signs of a mental breakdown?
I'm not aware of. I personally have not been briefed on some of his personal background. I'm leaving that to the experts, and I haven't been updated on that yet. So it's going to be frustrating for you, obviously, but you got to remember, and I've said it 100 times, this is an investigation, and we can't be delayed by providing information that would delay our information or cause an individual to go underground. You know all that. Everybody sitting before me knows that. And I just need you to understand it, okay? It's important for you to convey to the public we're doing everything that we possibly can do to bring this to fruition. And I think we are doing that, and I ask you for your patience.
Sheriff, can you confirm whether in the course of your investigation you discovered that perhaps Paddock might have been targeting another concert a week before the concert opened?
Yeah, I mentioned that he had obtained a room at the Ogden, which is located in downtown, and at the same time that Life is Beautiful was being conducted.
That leads you to believe.
Was he doing pre-surveillance? We don't know yet, okay? This is all conjecture at this point, and that's why it is important for us to have boots on the ground getting the answers.
Sure. On the stairwell,
Yes.
there's information out there that the door to the stairwell, the 32nd floor, was barricaded and possibly welded shut. Can you confirm whether that door was welded shut?
It was not welded shut, but it was secured.
Sheriff, have you determined whether he had visitors in his room while he was at the hotel?
No, not as of yet, no.
Sorry, no, not.
As of yet, no. But we haven't been able to determine if there's been anybody else in that room besides him.
Sheriff, with the camera in the car, does that lead you to believe that he might have been planning a bigger attack?
Speculation. I'll leave you for your own free will on that speculation. But, you know, it remained in the car for some reason. Ricardo?
Is there an estimate of how many rounds he fired, and is there an estimate of how many rounds he didn't fire found in the room?
No, just, you know what, I'll give you my personal preview. That'll come out in a public space. No, the rounds haven't been counted yet. There's a lot of evidentiary recovery systems that are taking in place prior to the recovery of the rounds. But there was well in the excess of thousands of rounds still present in the room.
Sheriff, in the leaked photos, there was a yellow, what appeared to be a yellow note. Can you tell us anything about that?
No, I don't. I can't recall.
A suicide note or anything?
No, it was not a suicide note. I'm comfortable in saying that. So,
Sheriff, where is Mary Lou Danley now, and is she still a person of interest?
okay, everything to do with Mary Lou Danley, I will have Special Agent Rouse address that. Okay, if you have any questions outside of that, we can circle back on that. Stephanie?
I'll just Special Agent Rouse about Mary Lou Danley.
Okay, we'll circle back on that. You guys want to know how I know her name? She was eating lunch next to me today and introduced herself. She's from Australia.
Sheriff, do you know what caused him to stop shooting?
Very good question. No, I do not know. I don't know if this is my assumption, only my assumption, and nobody's been able to dispel my assumption as of today. I believe because of his countermeasures placed in the peephole in the hallway, he observed the security guard, and he was in fear that he was about to be breached. So he was doing everything possible to figure out how he could escape at that point. His concern was personal concern versus what was occurring down below him.
Can you tell us anything about what time he shot himself? And can you tell us when?
You know, I don't know how to answer that question because that's the question that's been presented, and we haven't been able to, through the internal investigation of that, to pinpoint exactly if it was heard when he shot himself or did it occur in close proximity of entry? Because you imagine when they breached the door, they use explosive devices. So did it occur in close proximity to that explosive device and we lost it in the audible? Or it occurred when we were trying to set up our team in the hallway.
Another question. Do you know when the security guard was separated from the other officers?
It was my understanding before I had said he had gotten separated. That was inaccurate. What had happened was he was conducting an investigation based on customers calling in, and he was personally attempting to locate what was occurring. He happened upon that doorway because it was ajar, which keyed his interest. But our officers were in close proximity, so as you can imagine by the timeline there, as soon as they came out of the doorway of the elevator, he was there. So it happened in a matter of seconds.
Hold
on, let me finish her.
On the note, can you tell us, there was a note from him? Was there a content in there?
What note? The yellow paper?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't. I did a cursory review of the room, but I haven't been provided that information. But I know it was not a suicide note.
Sure.
Yes,
The security
sir.
guard, if you believe he saw the security guard approaching, that might have caused him to stop shooting. If he hadn't seen the security guard approaching, do you believe the shooting would have continued?
No, and I'm comfortable in saying no, and here's why. Because of the same action the security guard would have occurred with our patrol officer that was approaching up there. We had knowledge. He was between 31 and 32. Remember when you asked before, we said 29 to 32. And then subsequently through that time, it got culled down to 31, 32. A customer, a knowledgeable customer, prior military, said it was occurring directly above him, which subsequently the officers were doing their own checks. He was not aware of what that customer had said, and they were conducting, he was trying to pinpoint it. So our officers had learned, because they had a security guard attached to them, that they had recent information the individual was on 32. Okay, so they would have encountered him shortly in that timeline, maybe 60 seconds. And I would assume the same thing would have occurred.
Sheriff, a question about when he stopped firing and why. You've already indicated that he may have seen security guards while he was going to be breached, or your own personnel shortly thereafter could have committed done something similar. Based on the assessment of the weapons that were there, that he was using and had access to, were any of these weapons jammed or inoperable, or could he have continued firing without any problem if he had not seen, possibly, in the cameras that were there, what was coming his way?
He could have continued firing. Some of them were jammed, but he could have continued firing.
Go back with it a minute. You said some were jammed.
Yes.
How many?
I don't know the number, but some. But he had plenty of firepower available.
Do we have any idea, again,
if you recall, there was 23 weapons recovered.
Yes,
So.
jammed and then others within reach.
Yes. Yes.
One last question on the weapons that he was using. I don't know whether ATF was here to talk about this or not. This guy had a 300-foot high ground and about 500 to 800 yard kill zone. How many of those weapons that he was using and firing had advanced optics on it, either hunting scopes or ACOGs or anything else like that? Was that
Just from my visual preview of a crime scene, I saw at least 3 scopes. Most of them didn't have scopes.
hunting style scopes or advanced collaborated on an optical gun sight?
No, from what I know of firearms, they appear to be hunting scopes, not marksmanship scopes. So.
Sheriff, was the security guard armed, and can you talk about his bravery?
I don't know if he was armed. I don't know the security profile at the Mandalay Bay. I know quite often some security officers are armed, some aren't. Some supervisors, not regular security. I don't know the profile at the Mandalay Bay personally, so I don't know if he was armed. But his bravery was amazing because he remained with our officers, provided them the key pass to access the door, and actually continued to help them clear rooms until our officer demanded that he go seek medical attention.
While injured?
Yes.
Sheriff, could you just...
Let him ask a question.
Activities before the shooting, and we've heard from someone who said he was gambling. You know?
Yeah, we are aware he was gambling.
For hours?
I don't know the timeline, but we are aware he was gambling.
Sheriff, the ATF agent Snyder confirmed the CBS.
So reference. Let me provide some clarification because it'll answer one of the other questions on accomplice. When we did see he was gambling, we did not see another individual that appeared to be a companion. So. I don't recall, ma'am.
Sheriff, Agent Snyder confirmed to CBS News that Paddock bought weapons from October of 2016. He bought some 33 rifles. Are you looking into the possibility that there may have been some kind of a mental issue, something that happened in October of 2016 that compelled him to purchase those weapons?
Yes.
You are?
Yes.
What have you uncovered?
I haven't. I don't have the information. I wish I could provide you. I don't have it. But we are looking because we keyed on that too, sir.
You suggested that after he saw the security guard that his concern became himself. Did you see any evidence that he planned to survive this or try to escape?
Yes.
Can you tell us what that is? What's that?
I can't tell you.
So just to clarify, was it the security guard or the officers coming up who positively identified his location? And
I'm sorry, start over.
The security guard or your officers arriving that positively identified the gunman's location first?
It was a security guard. The officer had knowledge that it was occurring on the 32nd floor. They assumed that it was at the end of the hallway because the person that had called in said it was occurring directly above him. So they had an assumption, the proximity of the room, but the security guard had confirmed it prior to their arrival.
And can you give us any more detail about the magnitude of the gunfire that he encountered when he was spotted?
Yeah, my personal observation, well over 200 rounds strafed the hallway.
Sure, if you commented
So it's amazing that security guard didn't sustain additional injury.
Sheriff, you commented that you believe he had a plan or some kind of organization in his mindset for surviving this particular incident. What have you determined that could have given you a clue that he had an escape plan? Funds for accounts, money?
That's just a different way to answer the same question, and I can't answer that for you.
Sheriff, you mentioned accomplice.
Did the officers fire back at all?
No. No.
Sheriff, you mentioned accomplices. We've talked previously about Mary Lou Danieley as a person of interest. Are there any other persons of interest in this investigation?
Well, is there any other? No. Concrete, no. We're looking at it this way, Ken. Is there another one? And we're determining to find out if there was. I mean, it's important not to close this case until we run down everything.
Should we ask the terrorist question again?
Because look at this. I mean, you look at the weapon obtaining, the different amounts of tannerite available. Do you think this was all accomplished on his own? Self-value, face value. You got to make the assumption he had to have some help at some point, and we want to ensure that that's the answer. Maybe he's a super guy. Maybe he superhero, not a hero, a super. I won't use the word. Maybe he's, super Yahoo that was working out all this on his own, but it'd be hard for me to believe that.
And to that, do we need to ask?
And here's the reason why. Put one and one together, or two and two together. Another residence in Reno with several firearms, okay, electronics and everything else associated with large amounts of ammo. A place in Mesquite. We know that he had a girlfriend. Do you think this is all self-facing? The individuals are just, without talking to somebody, it was sequestered amongst themselves. I mean, come on, folks. These type of investigations have been occurring in the last few years, and we have to evaluate that. So hold on. I'm done, okay? What I want you to do is give Aaron Rouse the opportunity to talk about Mary Lou. He may not have anything for you, okay? But I think it's fair for you to ask him, and then I would like to get to Senator Heller and Commissioner Sisolak.
The car was planned for him.
I'm sorry?
Was the car planned for him to stay? So there might have been evidence.
Don't ask me to make assumptions, please.
Thank you.
Ken?
We were asking, where is Mary Lou Danieley now? And is she still a person of interest in this investigation?
As I mentioned in my comments, people rely on us for our discretion. If someone is assisting us in an investigation, if they're being cooperative, that's between us and them. Giving away a location of a citizen or somebody that is cooperating with us is not in our best interest. It's not in that person's best interest, and so that's a matter of their business. So we're not going to comment on that.
She is not in federal custody.
We have no one in custody.
Especially around, if I could just ask the same question, without saying anything specific, after seeing his computers, after speaking to Mary Lou, do you have any direction, any sense as to what may have been the motivation? Any sense of any evidence of anything?
So as I mentioned in my earlier remarks, we like to deal in facts. So theories are great, and everyone can have a theory. But I need to deal with facts. The sheriff needs to deal with facts. We're reliant on that to do our jobs. And so that's what we're going to focus on. There are a number of working theories out there, and we're going to continue to use those. But we're not going to publicize them because that's not fair to anyone. We do not want to taint anyone unfairly. We want to make sure that what we have is accurate, and you want us to be accurate. That's what you expect of us.
Sir, do you have to consider this to be domestic terrorism?
We have found no evidence to this point to indicate terrorism, but this is an ongoing investigation. We're going to continue to look at all avenues. We're not closing down any doors. The best way to do an investigation, the sheriff will tell you this, I'll tell you this, is that you don't go in with assumptions. He's not going to make assumptions, as you just said. I'm not going to make assumptions. We're going in there following the facts. The facts will always lead you to your conclusion. And we hope, very much so, to be able to provide concrete information to the public about why this happened, because that's what's on everyone's mind. Because to understand the why helps you deal with the tragedy that we've all faced, and we've all faced it. So we want to know why.
Okay, I want to take this time to give the commissioners this last opportunity to say a few words.
Thank you.
We will close with.
I'm going to say some things that the sheriff didn't say. When you see these men and women in these uniforms, and the men and women that don't wear uniforms, but a lot of them have these lapel pins on, I've noticed, you got to tell them thank you. I mean, I've dealt with these folks, been working with them for the last 3 days. They're working on zero sleep. I beg you to show some patience. I'm hearing the same question asked 3, 4, 5 times in different ways. Speculation coming out of this group. These gentlemen deal exclusively in facts. They're not speculating. There's no conjecture here. They're not dealing with theories. They're dealing with facts. Their primary purpose and their goal is to conclude this investigation in a professional and accurate manner, and I'm totally confident that they're going to do that. They are protecting the citizens of Clark County and the tourists that are here. They have made this city safe again. It is a safe place to come. We encourage that, but I implore you, please, please, show some patience and understand that they're not going to deal with conjecture and theories that are coming up on social media. Thank you very much.
Senator.
My words and comments are similar to what the commissioner just said, and the importance of patience. This incident, horrific incident, is less than 72 hours old. And the reason that I come to these briefings and these press conferences is to listen to the sheriff and learn bit by bit what happened just a little while ago. What I want to express is my gratitude to the sheriff, to the FBI, to the ATF, and for everybody that is keeping us up to date to what is going on, briefing my office and myself. I also want to express how grateful I am that the President of the United States came to express his sincere concerns for this community and understanding what this means. I had a rare occasion to be at 30,000 feet with a couple hours of FaceTime with this particular president, and we talked specifically about the individuals, the deputies, the first responders, and all that, and what they were able to achieve in a very short period of time. In my cell phone here, I have numerous pictures of survivors from UMC, and I expressed and shared those pictures with the President of the United States so that he could see some of the damages on what had occurred. One in particular was a deputy that was on his second day. I know we've heard this story, second day on the job. He was there. His father was actually at the event as a spectator when the shooting occurred, got hit in the arm, went into his chest. His name is Brady Cook. And I shared this story with the president. The president went up to the 5th floor of UMC and had an opportunity to talk to this young man and express his sincere gratitude for his strengths. I also showed him a picture of a cell phone that had a bullet, an Apple phone that had a bullet through it. And it was a therapist over at UMC. And that bullet went through her phone and hit her hand. She just had tissue damage. She fixed it herself, went back to UMC, and spent hours helping those that had come into the hospital. These stories were important for me to share with the President of the United States as he was coming into this valley and understand the depth of the issue that we had on hand. But it wasn't just that. I also lobbied him on a couple of issues, and one has to do with terrorist funds. Now, I didn't lobby the president because it was important to me. I asked the governor, what should I talk to him about? The mayor, what do you want me to talk to the president about? I asked the sheriff, what do you want me to talk to the president about? And it had to do with these urban terrorist funds that come out of Homeland Security and how important it is that Las Vegas, this strip, has the funding necessary to keep not only its citizens safe, but also those that are visiting this city. It's not enough that we have 2.1 million people that live in this valley, but we have 42 million people that come in every year to visit. And I want to make sure that Las Vegas has the funding, terrorism funding necessary to keep us safe, to buy the equipment that they need to be able to monitor and to be able to follow up on the issues that they're faced with on a day-to-day basis. So my gratitude continues. My gratitude continues from everybody around the country. About 15 seconds ago, I was sitting right behind her. A cab driver that I used in New York City just sent me a text. We became friends on a ride, but his message was, Senator, myself, my family, and all my drivers want to express our condolences to those touched by the recent weekend shootings. All our best. A cab driver from New York concerned about Las Vegas Valley. So I am grateful for all my colleagues back in Washington, D.C., grateful for the sheriff, the FBI, the ATF, all the work that's being done. The healing has begun, but it's been less than 72 hours. We have a long way to go. Thank you very much for being here today.
Conclude today's press conference. So as a matter of moving forward, I can't give you a definitive...
So with about a 40-minute press conference out of Las Vegas, local police, the FBI, some politicians getting before the microphone there. Fox News' Trace Gallagher has been in Las Vegas since the beginning of all this and joins us with an update. Hey, Trace.
Just a 40-minute astounding news conference, Tucker. I mean, amazing. The sheriff came out and first said, confirmed something we had brought up a couple of nights ago, that he did, in fact, rent a room at the Ogden Hotel in downtown Las Vegas, and it was overlooking the concert venue of Life is Beautiful. That was the week before the Route 91 concert. And then he goes on to say, on top of the ammonium nitrate that was found inside his car in the valet over here at Mandalay Bay, they also found some 50 pounds of tannerite. We talked to some experts around here. They say 50 pounds of tannerite, which can be exploded with a high-powered rifle, is enough to take off a healthy chunk of the hotel. It's unclear exactly what his motives were. We talked about pre-surveillance with the sheriff. He said he simply does not know. The subject came up about the girlfriend, right? They talked about Mary Lou Danley and what her impact was today in the FBI. She was in there for 5.5 hours. They gave us very little information, saying they're not going to tell anybody about where she is, if she's staying in Los Angeles, because they don't want to ruin her confidence. Apparently, she is cooperating. But her lawyer came out after 5.5 hours at the FBI. He came out and he gave a statement saying that she, one, was cooperating. Two, she knows nothing about the attack. Three, that she grieves for the victims and the family. And she says that Stephen Paddock was a kind and gentle man. And she did acknowledge that he actually sent her $100,000. And here's her reasoning. Watch.
While there, he wired me money, which he said was for me to buy a house for me and my family. I was grateful, but honestly, I was worried that first, the unexpected trip home, and then the money was a way of breaking up with me. It never occurred to me in any way whatsoever that he was planning violence against anyone.
One thing that has not been addressed, Tucker, is the fact that nobody has asked her, we know of her, we don't know how the phrasing was of whether or not she knew that there were an arsenal of weapons inside the two homes that she lived with him in. We're talking about 47 guns, explosives, and suitcases of ammunition. We still don't know if that's been addressed with her and if she knew anything about that, Tucker.
There's an awful lot we don't know still, Trace. Kind of remarkable how much, actually. Thank you for keeping on top of all of that. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Joining us now, best-selling author Mark Stein, who's been following this as carefully as anybody. Mark, are you struck by how little we know about motive? I mean, we know a lot about the firearms and the tannerite and all the rest, the girlfriend, but why would someone who fits this profile or any profile do something like this? It doesn't seem like we know anything about that.
No, and as you said at the top of the show, Tucker, that's why in the vacuum, various conspiracy theories are starting to arise. There are reports that the video found in the room points in a certain direction. The London papers are already reporting that piece of yellow paper in the room, if not a suicide note, has some significance in the case. And indeed, what was fascinating, I thought, about the sheriff's press conference is his choice of this phrase, quote, secret life, unquote, which is not quite the same as saying things that there are lots of things we don't know. Right. He seems to be suggesting that there is this life that this guy was leading that is different from his life as a retired accountant and professional gambler. As I think you noted a day or two ago too, Tucker, it's actually very unusual in this day and age for a man to have as blank a profile on the internet as this guy has. If he were, for example, a CIA or MI6 agent, they would plant the rudiments of a social media profile out there on the internet. just so that it didn't look weirdly blank, whereas this guy's profile looks weirdly blank. And I thought the other point the sheriff raised that was interesting was he tiptoed very close up to the point of saying that as far as he was concerned, this guy had to have had an accomplice. I mean, this thing was very well organized, very well planned, right down to requesting and securing the exact hotel room that he wanted, which is actually quite a tricky thing to do in Las Vegas. And from that point of view, the sheriff seemed to be saying that he couldn't, Occam's razor would suggest this guy had to have someone out there helping him, plus the fact that he intended to escape. In other words, the stuff we were talking about just a couple of days ago, when non-Islamic terrorism happens, that some guy just snaps and guns down his high school or guns down a shopping mall, this isn't that. There's something more to it going on.
Which even makes the motive for it more confusing. If he had no political or religious agenda, why do something like this? Very, very striking. Really quickly, the briefers today said that there was no indication of severe mental illness, but we do know that he was prescribed psychotropic drugs. An actress called Kirstie Alley raised this specter, was denounced as a wacko Scientologist. Is it so crazy, though, to wonder if people's behavior isn't affected by the drugs they take? Is that a crazy thing to ask?
Well, I think that's true. What I find slightly difficult to accept in this case, Tucker, is that a drug could have that effect on him, but not impact his ability to function at a very high level. Right. And the fact that his girlfriend did not notice any change in him. I mean, what might be more relevant is that this guy is a professional gambler. In other words, bluffing is what he does with his life. And there have been reports out there that various doctors and so forth have conducted that compulsive gamblers, in that sense, are expert at concealment and covering up and all the rest of it. And that actually, because the efficiency with which he planned this and carried it out is not consistent with someone who's just gone a little screwy because some drugs have had a side effect go wacky on him.
That's exactly right. This was clear. But to what end is the question? Of course, we don't know. Mark Stein, thank you for all that.
Thanks a lot, Tucker.
Well, as details, sparse as they are, about Stephen Paddock emerge, various media outlets have featured stories on the shooter's race and sex. CNN ran a story today entitled, quote, "How America Has Accepted the Rage of White Men." Salon.com ran a story entitled "America's White Man Problem After Las Vegas, a Familiar Script Unfolds." Vox, meanwhile, ran a story called White American Men, a Bigger Domestic Terror Threat Than Muslim Foreigners. Now, not one of those outlets, of course, would ever publish an analogous piece applying to any other race, obviously. And yet some Arab Americans say the media goes too easy on white men after shootings like this. Amr Zar is a law professor. He thinks that. He joins us tonight. Amr Zar, thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
It's not obvious to me why there's a racial component in this. I've followed it as closely as most news consumers, and I don't see that the guy's race is relevant to anything. So why is it central to your analysis of this?
Well, it's central to the coverage, right? So if we look back at how Orlando was covered immediately, without any investigation to him, he had a motive simply because he was a Muslim. We find out later that it was much more complicated, that he had identity issues and all these other things. But the media jumps out right away, right, and gives usually white shooters the privilege of acting as an individual, as not acting on behalf of a race or a group. That doesn't happen to any other people, especially Muslims or Arabs. I mean, we even had a 14-year-old...
Can I just say one thing, though? Two things, actually. It wasn't that complicated in Orlando. He didn't have sexual identity issues. We actually kind of know that after months of looking at it. He called 911 and said, "I'm doing this on behalf of my religion." It's not about his race, it's about his religion. There are Muslims from all over the world who don't look alike, share the same race, as you know. And so it's not a racial issue to say that an ideology inspires people to do certain things. That's not racial, right?
Yeah, but the media... No, you're not right. Because what happens is people who are not white, especially if they're Arab or Muslim, automatically have a motivation. I'm not talking about what happens after months of investigation. I'm talking about what happens in the first 24 to 48 hours when the media covers something. I mean, even a 14-year-old kid in Texas who brought a clock to school somehow had a motivation, right? And he was arrested and questioned without his parents. And a guy in Las Vegas with 42 guns, and they're searching for a motivation instead of assuming that he has any. The double standard is glaring. It happens all the time in the media, and especially to Arab and Muslim Americans.
Right, Arab and Muslim Americans. But I mean, let's be totally honest. Since September 2001, it wasn't that long ago, 89% of all deaths in mass killings have been caused by Muslims. It's not an indictment of all Muslims. That number. Oh, whoa,
no, that's
that
not
number,
true. What we do,
actually,
what we do know is that federal statistics tell us
and it's
that
not
63% of mass shootings in America are committed by white men. But we shouldn't indict white culture for that. What I'm saying is let's do away with the word terrorism altogether.
It's not, and I agree with you that terrorism is a loaded term. And I'd be happy to get rid of it.
It's an ethnic slur. It's become nothing more than a racial slur.
But hold on, that's silly. Muslims make up about 1% of the American population. They're not Arabs, not Pashtuns, not racial groups or ethnic groups. This is a religion. They make up about 1% of the U.S. population.
Yeah, but religion gets racialized. Religion gets racialized in the way that we...
Only by morons.
Of course it does, right?
Only by morons.
So for instance,
in Boston, it's a creed.
Do you refer to the Boston bombers as white? I mean, they were from the Caucasus Mountains. They're actual Caucasians. You refer to them as white? No, you don't.
They seem as white as you
refer to them as Muslim.
Pretty white.
You refer to them as Muslim.
Well, that's kind of the point, actually. You're making my point, and maybe we agree with each other. It's not about the race. It's about the belief. And of course, the Tsarnaev brothers, I don't even know what their race was. I don't care. They acted out of a series of beliefs which are voluntary.
These things get conflated socially all the time. So the point is, when someone is not a white, by the media, when someone is not a white Christian, right, immediately they are ascribed a motivation simply because of their background, whether it be race or religion or whatever. They are ascribed a motive, and that's not true. When you're white, you're able to have the privilege of acting individually, just on your behalf.
You just noted that,
you just saw the chief. You just saw the chief call him.
Okay.
No, I'm not. You just saw the chief call him disturbed and dangerous in that long press conference. He didn't call him motivated. Where you have immediately, you had the stabbing in Flint, Michigan, and immediately he was motivated.
Did you watch the press conference? They don't know his motivation.
Yeah.
This whole show is about what is his motivation. Everyone watching longs to understand why this happened. They're searching for one. They don't have one.
That's the point. But we're never patient. We're never patient with Muslim or Arab criminals. We're just not patient with them.
When you call 911 and say,
with white criminals.
I'm very impatient to know why this guy did this. When you call 911 and say, I'm opening fire in a gay nightclub on behalf of Allah, when you say that, when you fly your planes into office buildings and say, I'm doing this on behalf of my religion, we don't need to be patient. Right. You just told us why you're doing it. And so it's not about the media.
Was Dylan Roof a terrorist to you? Was the shooter at Planned Parenthood in Colorado a terrorist to you? They told us clearly why they did what they did.
Was he a
terrorist? But the media simply did not label them terrorists.
I don't know who you're talking about.
That's the point. I mean, the term gets thrown around so willy-nilly, especially against Arab and Muslims. That's the point I'm trying to make. Hey, let's do away with the term altogether if we want.
Then I'm totally happy to do that. I'm really bothered by the intellectual laziness you're displaying, conflating race and religion.
Actually,
they're not the same thing.
You don't. If you don't want to understand the way people sometimes conflate race or religion or racialize a religion, then that's some other studying that you can do. The point that I'm making
dumb
is
generalizations that aren't rooted in fact.
The point that I'm making is that the media generally, all the time, will go out and say immediately that an Arab or Muslim shooter has a motivation simply based on his background.
You haven't offered a single example, and I don't think you're a very effective advocate for your position, whatever it is. But I appreciate your coming on. All right. We're out of time, unfortunately. But as we've been saying for the last 2 days, and as was reconfirmed in the 40-minute press conference we took tonight, for all the detail we know about how this shooting took place on Sunday night, the weapons used, the ammunition, how many rounds, we still don't know the key question, which is why did a 64-year-old retired accountant spend a lot of time and a lot of money to murder an enormous number of strangers? That's not an academic question. We seek to know it, both because we seek to prevent it in the future, and because to not know it is to be terrified, because it seems random, and of course you want to impose some sense, some order on events like this. So as we find more details, we'll bring them to you immediately.